On October 17th, 1989, the Loma Prieta earthquake happens at 5:04 local time, affecting the Bay Area of California, where the third game of the World Series was being held at Candlestick Park in San Francisco, where two Bay Area teams in the San Francisco Giants and the Oakland Athletics were facing off for a chance at the World Series. But all of that stopped with a 6.9 Richter scale earthquake, damaging bridges and buildings and roads, killing 63 and injuring almost 4,000 people. Today we're going to dive into what happened and how this affected the 1989 World Series. Welcome to Daily Sports History. I'm Ethan Reese, your guide for a rapid deep dive into sports history every day. Now, earlier, we've covered the 1988 World Series, which also featured the Oakland Athletics and another California team, which is largely remembered for Kirk Gibson's Game 1 home run. But a year later, Oakland was again in the World Series, attempting this time to win, winning 99 games, and brought back many of the same people as they had the Bash brothers and Mark McGwire and Jose Canseco, and Dave Stewart was their star pitcher that year, and faced off against Toronto in the ALCS, beating them pretty handily in 5 games, leading to meeting their neighbors across the bay, the San Francisco Giants, who represented the National League that year, as they won 92 games, winning their division, led by Kevin Mitchell, who hit 47 home runs that year. And despite having no one on their pitching staff win more than 17 games, they were able to put together a strong season. So the World Series, known as the Battle of the Bay, began as both teams were right next to the San Francisco Bay. Began on October 14th, when Dave Stewart took the starting job against Scott Geraltz, where Oakland won handily 5-0. In Game 2, again in Oakland came out with starter Mike Moore, facing off against Giants pitcher Rick Ruschel, and again, Oakland won, winning 5-4. As the game shifted across the bay for Game 3 at Candlestick Park in San Francisco, as roughly 50,000 people were in attendance for this game. The game was set to start at 5:30, and as everyone was making their way in and pregame coverage was starting, the telecast at 5:04 completely cuts out. Now remember, this is 1989. There is no social media. News coverage is not 24 hours. So when you're watching a sport and it just goes away and then it just cuts to like technical difficulty or just says a generic logo, you have no idea what happened. You think maybe a fuse blew or the television station's having literal technical difficulties, but that's not what happened in this case. See, Loma Prieta is a mountain range just outside the San Jose area, and that was the epicenter for this 6.9 Richter scale earthquake. Now, if you don't know much about this scale, it goes from 0 and it goes all the way up to 10, but the largest ever measured was 9.2 in 1960 on the coast of Chile. But the highest level is 7.0, and this was just below that. But the reason why it was so devastating was the population in the Bay Area. Now, shortly after this post moment, all the sports networks do eventually get back on the air and try to explain what's happened. The earthquake has happened, and you start to see the chaos that is ensuing at the stadium, as many fans may have not been there yet or were making their way. And actually, the fact that this game was going on, it actually helped, as many people had left the city to go home early to see the game. And so there was less people in the city for the chance of the devastation. So they did probably save lives by hosting this event. And because it was such a good event, the Goodyear blimp was actually there for the telecast and helped coordinate emergency efforts as they were using everything they could. The police used ABC's generator to help coordinate their packages and use one of their phone lines as they didn't have anything besides radio for communication. And we even see police cars driving onto the field, coordinating with people, telling them the game has been postponed, make your way in orderly fashion out of the stadium. Now, many of the patrons at the stadium were a little freaked out as the way Candlestick was put together, it was made for earthquakes, and it has joints that are made to move so that in a case of an earthquake, it doesn't crumble. But when you see that as a person, you see cracks and joints and things not where they're supposed to be, it freaks you out. And that's why many people left and they did not want to stay. And it was good for them to leave. And luckily, it was done in an orderly fashion. And it's interesting to watch pictures as we see many of the players and their teammates in the middle of the field. So it's a crowd of people in the middle of the field because that's arguably the safe place, because if something were to crumble at the stadium, it wouldn't fall on top of them. So they waited there for a few while everyone cleared out, and then the teams made their way out. Now, one of the biggest things that happened were bridges in the area were collapsing. There were highway bridges, including the Bay Bridge that connected Oakland to San Francisco. Now, this is not the Golden State Bridge. It's another bridge. And this was a double-decker bridge, and the top deck fell down onto the bottom deck, making it more like a ramp. You couldn't use the bridge at all because of this. And there were other bridges and highways that did actually collapse and come down on multiple people, killing them, unfortunately. Now, it's estimated that there were over 12,000 homes that were damaged, over 2,000 businesses. And this earthquake, although it was devastating, lives and injuries were happened, and it was a life-changing event, it really kicked up everything for California and the West Coast, where most earthquakes do happen. And they now put into place that they were going to retrofit all the places they could, all the bridges, the old houses, the old buildings, going to retrofit them. And any building that is made is going to be hurricane safe to help something like this from happening again. As you can't stop an earthquake, but you can prevent the devastation, as most of the devastation that happened was due to bridges falling and buildings falling and debris. And that's what mostly gets you during these earthquakes, not the actual quake itself. The earthquake itself, it shakes you, you feel uneasy, but if you're out in the middle of a field, you will be fine. It's when there's other stuff around you. So this moment has actually helped save even more lives, even though that some lives were taken in the process. Now, after this happened, the commissioner of the league, Faye Vincent, held a press conference by candlelight to let us know that this series was suspended and we were going to take it. We were going to evaluate later on what we were going to do. And he actually did not tell anyone before he made this announcement that he was going to do this, as he was making decisions as he went. Now, this decision was, do we keep the series here, or do we move it, or do we cancel it? Those were the options they were dealing with. And many other stadiums offered up their location to host the rest of the game. Wrigley Field, Comiskey Park, the Kingdome in Seattle, the Astrodome, Yankee Stadium, Shea Stadium. But they decided to just delay until it was safe to have the game again at Candlestick Park. Now, Candlestick Park only had minor damages, and they were able to be quickly repaired and was deemed safe to start Game 3 on October 27th. Now, in between this time, San Francisco Giants stayed in the San Francisco area to help their family and friends in the area the best they could. But Oakland actually went to Phoenix so they could practice. Now, they are a Bay Area team, and many of them had homes and family affected as well, but they didn't want the distraction that was going on and wanted to focus on baseball for the rest of the series. And because of this delay, it actually allowed Dave Stewart, Oakland's ace, to actually pitch again for Game 3. During an offensive blowout, they won 13-7. Then again, in Game 4, Mike Moore pitched for the Oakland Athletics on October 28th, which at the time was the latest date the World Series had ever been played, which now it goes all the way into November thanks to the increase of the baseball playoffs. But Oakland won this last game 9-6, sweeping the San Francisco Giants. Now, Oakland won as they were the favorites. They were probably going to win this series anyway, but having this happen to San Francisco at the same time made it very hard for them to really be focused into the game. And so it allowed the A's to win another championship. And it would be years before the Giants would get a chance to follow. And this just goes to show you that natural disasters do affect sports. This hasn't been the only time that earthquake has affected sporting events, hurricanes, tornadoes, flooding. This stuff happens in the world. And just because sports, we put them on a pedestal and we love them, and these guys are millionaires, they still go through all the stuff that we go through. Teams have to figure this out. And it's interesting how they go about it all the time because we all want to see our sports, but it has to be done in a safe way. And if you want to learn more about natural disasters, check out the disaster response, where hosts Paul and Joshua go into the history of natural disasters and the response that happens. They dive into even more about what would happen, covering earthquakes, hurricanes, volcano explosions. They go through it all in great detail so you can learn even more. We'll put a link in the description so you can check them out. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review wherever you're listening. And if you want, you can tell us a topic you want to cover and your name, and we'll get that done just for you. And come back tomorrow for more daily sports history.